We did have a few injuries and a few violent protests in the beginning of the movement, not because of the protesters, of course. It was all police repression. So I definitely do understand the need for first aid kits. So if y'all can definitely, show up with the money and be able to help out protesters that way, that would be amazing. I think we definitely need to be supporting everybody that's putting in the work on the ground. And then I think I would also like to give some tips to the protesters that are out there as a seasoned activist as to what to look out for. I know that because there's so much going on, there's the potential of seeing fake movements come up or fake events come up. So I think it's very important to just be very vigilant of those things coming up. It just know that there is legitimate actions and that passion will always drive the need for movements. But because of this, we need to make sure that we're constantly on top of everything that we're doing. I think that in San Diego and LA, there were a few movements that came out that ended up being organized by white supremacist groups. So I think we need to be very vigilant about that and ensure that we're safe and that we're following credible movements so that we can avoid all of the the negative imagery that the media tends to portray on us, because it's honestly not what the majority of people out there are doing.
And with that, because it's kind of, there's been places across LA where there's just huge piles of bricks that there were never piles of bricks before, and looting and thievery. And for people who have, let's say, never been politically active, but are seeing this and seeing it through the lens of the media, and not necessarily they don't have the time to look at every single news station, what would you suggest to them?
Honestly, just don't be so naive. That's the best advice I can give, because there's so much information out there. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't know what's going on. We have so much content that is created, whether it's for information purposes or for entertainment purposes. There's absolutely no reason for people not to know what's going on. And people will, go ahead and dismiss certain actions because of their personal politics. However, as a person to say, I don't believe that that's true, you're just avoiding watching the videos, because clearly the evidence is piled up. Clearly people are seeing these things. People that are on the ground are seeing that there's supplies that shouldn't be there, that are out of place. I wasn't protesting personally, but I went to go give supplies to protesters, and as I was waiting, I did see that there were a few glass bottles on the ground, strategically placed, and I couldn't help but think, were those strategically placed there, or was there somebody that left them there just carelessly? But regardless, my intuition said, move them, get them the fuck out of here, make sure that you throw them away, get them out of sight, out of hand. I went ahead and did that, and it definitely felt some sort of way, because it felt like anything that I could have done, the police could have gone ahead and blamed me. But it's those type of things, those type of actions. If you see it, fucking get rid of it. If you see it, say something. Mention and say, hey, avoid this shit. Stand guard by there. Don't just let it happen, because, people who are not organized, people who are essentially working out of passion, might get angry enough to grab one of those items, and we do not want to put them in harm's way.
Fantastic.
So we definitely are seeing an increase of random supplies, though.
And with the aggression from police, because they're out there shooting non-lethal bullets, and literally a non-lethal bullet is a contradiction in itself because it's a bullet. So, how would you suggest people who are out there protect themselves against tear gas and those non-lethal bullets?
First of all, Google safety tips before you go out to any action. As someone who has done research and has been there, water is the best option. People will recommend milk to get rid of the stinking, but that might cause bacteria in the long run, and you don't want to cause an eye infection. So a lot of street medics do recommend that you carry distilled water or with a water bottle and just clear out. It will sting, but just make sure that you clear out. And the best way to clean it off would be to clean off the forehead with a napkin so that the tear gas does not come down. Then cover the eyes from the eyebrows down, and then wash the eyes. Make sure that the water falls down the face. Make sure that it does not get on the nose or the mouth. Because if you do get it into any mucous membrane, that shit's going to sting and it's going to hurt. The more moist that your throat and your mucous membranes get, the worse it'll sting. So you want to get out of the gas cloud as soon as possible. Try to get people out of the cloud as soon as possible. Close your eyes. Make sure that your face is covered, that your nose is covered. If you need to help somebody, just rinse their eyes with a dry cloth or a napkin. Try to get everything off. And that's the best option. You can do a mixture, I believe, of baking soda and water, but you would have to research the actual amounts because I don't want to give off the wrong amounts. But there is a mixture of baking soda and water that is used to kind of also help clear out that stinginess. And if you have any gas on your clothes, take it off. So it's recommended that you wear an undershirt just in case, and make sure that you try to be as covered as possible. You don't want to get tear gassed, but you want to be prepared for it because you cannot avoid it at times.
Fantastic. Thank you. And lastly, with the bracket, wow. So with the Black and Brown coalition that I feel like does exist to a certain point. It does exist. There also are detractors on both sides and just in general.
Definitely.
So,
and there will continue to be some.
And at least from the Latino perspective, how is that necessarily playing out? Whether it be households, just things you've seen, conversations you've had with people.
I'm definitely seeing that play out from every single interaction. Honestly, I'm very privileged to have an immediate family that tends to be very open-minded, but I do understand that my family is also very close-minded in that aspect. In the whole aspect of racism, there still tends to be that internalized racism within our own people, and that's primarily the reason why there's so much tension between the Latino and the Black folk, because of our personal internalized racism. And that's definitely something that we need to work on, and we first have to acknowledge that it exists, and we need to work on that. And by working on that, I mean having the conversations, not just ourselves. Like, we can definitely check ourselves, but it's the work needs to be done within our family, because if anybody in our family is spouting any anti-Blackness, it needs to be shut down immediately. And actually, recently I had a conversation with my family over the dinner table about a video that circulated regarding a group of young Black men beating up two older Black Mexican men. And one of my family members, although his heart is entirely with the Black Lives Matter movement, he was also hurt with the video. So the conversation on the table was more around the internalized racism within the community and how that affects our relationship with the Black community. How the constant repression and the constant microaggressions that we spew out end up causing these tensions. And it developed into a conversation of how do we do better? So these are the type of conversations that need to be had. How are we currently participating in anti-Blackness and racism and oppression towards our Black brethren? And how we can go ahead and become better. Because we also have to acknowledge that Afro-Latinidad is a very prominent thing. The majority of Latino people are of Afro-descendancy. So we cannot be separating the two. It's irresponsible to be separating the two, and we really need to stand together.
Facts. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for everything you offered to the listening audience and everything that you do. Stay safe. And
thank you. Thank you for having me. Likewise.
Anything else you want to say before you go?
Black Lives Matter and fuck the police.
Fuck 12. When I turn 13, when I turned to 13, I scared however it goes. When I turned 11, I actually turned 13 because fuck 12. Okay, there, I got it.
Yeah, exactly. You got it out. That's what counts.
Exactly. I appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you, too. Bye-bye.
Bye. I really botched like one of my favorite lines of all time. Because as soon as I turned 12, I was like, I'm 13. Like, no, you 12. Like, nah, fuck 12. I'm 13. I'm a man now. I have no hair on my face. It's ridiculous. But again, shout out to that last call. I think the community is speaking louder than ever, and I feel like everyone's actually listening this time. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Shalom, everybody. This is Ryan Mancini calling from just a little west of Santa Clarita.
Black Bear Diner?
Nope, that's in Santa Clarita.
I have to try that place. I'm really mad at Pete for telling me that their food's really good, and I slandered it so badly.
I've heard their eggs Benedict are divine. So.
Oh, okay, Mancini. We're not here to talk eggs Benedict.
I'm just. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, man. I'm just passing it along.
I know. I appreciate it. I feel like the group chat. I feel like your energy in the group chat was funnier. But shout out to Clutch Conversations in the chat. Was good. Life is good, and all these calls have been great. Shout out to Ryan. And yes, fuck 12. But anyway, so Ryan, from my understanding, you live in Santa Clarita. I would say it's God's ashy heel. I guess we could call it that. I mean, Florida has a nickname. Santa Clarita kind of deserves one too, because it's dry and everyone kind of forgets it's just far away, but it's still part of the foot or whatever. It's still part of LA, I guess. Is Santa Clarita LA?
It's LA County, but it's not considered part of LA.
Good to know.
Like Northridge is. Silmar isn't.
Yeah.
Stevenson Ranch is part of LA County. Santa Clarita is technically part of LA County, but it's independent from the LA City Council.
Indeed. So, obviously, there's quarantine going on, curfews. Santa Clarita and other places like it, the curfews were insanely early. So, how did you handle curfews, and what have you seen from protests?
Well, in regards to the curfews, they've been fairly consistent with